Following the original Tony Hawktober, honestly, all I was worried about for the longest time was if I could even follow it. While none of the videos were perfect, it was a body of work I was incredibly proud of, something people expressed genuine interest in from the moment it was live until the very day a year later when I'd follow it up with a sequel. Twice the amount of games, twice the length, and an entire extra video to fit it all in. The original was completed in just 6 weeks, so I tried to do the smart thing this time around. Double the amount of time I had to get everything done. A total of 3 months to write, shoot, and edit 6 videos. If there is one thing I've learned from this experience, it's that doubling the time you have to work on something is only going to double the amount of time when things can go horribly wrong. Today, we're going to cover this process start to finish. The origin of Hawktober was to set itself apart from any and all other channel specials, particularly in the game review space. So the number one goal was to continue that this year. I find that a lot of these specials are incredibly repetitive and samey each time you see them, as it's just the same thing year after year. So to combat this, I needed to ride the line between familiar and original. I wanted year 2 to feel completely different. A lot of people were excited to see me dick about on the skateboard again, but why bother? Given my lack of ability, that gag completely exhausted all of its potential the prior year, so don't even go there. Instead, make this year about the games. Year 1 was all the stuff I grew up with, the good stuff mostly, that really doesn't have a whole lot to say. This year, I knew well enough was going to offer a much different feel, given each game has a lot more to talk about on its own. The overall presentation needed to be different too, hence why some of the videos were shot on my normal set, like any other episode. Those videos don't need the added specialness that shooting on location provides, so don't bother with it. With the ideas and plan laid out of how to go about the production, work began in the background playing through all of the games, as well as recreating the logos and intro animations. They were easily the coolest part of the previous year, for me anyway, but notice how this year they all felt different. For one, I decided it's best to switch over to the Robomodo logo to fit with the change in direction for the franchise at this stage. The Robomodo logos are actually really cool in my opinion. Same process as last year, recreating the logo and then animating it over the top of the existing intros. For Neversoft, the first thing I did for the project was work on the Proving Ground logo, and that one's a mess. It was really difficult trying to get the Hawktober logo in there, while also removing the original. Luckily, the Leftovers episode was much easier. Originally, it was just going to be the Pro Skater 2 logo, but since this episode is all about going back through the originals, I thought it'd be fun to do them all and kind of mix them in together to create a somewhat original intro. After all, I covered those games before Hawktober, and before I did custom logos for each episode, so it needed to be done. Moving on to the actual game logos now, keeping with the theme of making this year feel different, notice how low energy they all are. Compared to the crazy of last year, these ones are incredibly basic. Literally just the custom logo plonked on top of the original title screens, and that's it. Not only does it help set the tone of these episodes compared to year 1, but it also reflects the series as a whole, as well as saving me a lot of time and energy that can then be spent elsewhere. By this point, things were taking a much more generic, basic approach to the branding, so I think it fits. Now, the original plan for Hawktober was complicated to say the least, as I also had to produce content for the channel to keep uploads flowing leading up to episode 100. Starting to work on this in July, playing games in the background while working on regular episodes, the hope was to spend the first week of August writing scripts so that I'd have the entire month to film just 6 episodes, half of which were at home. While doing that, I was planning to focus on keeping a regular schedule for content and getting ahead for September so that could be my crunch time for Hawktober editing. Sadly, at the start of August, I had a family member pass away, which completely dominated the 2 weeks around it. As a result, I was 2 weeks behind, and remained 2 weeks behind schedule for the entire production. By the time I could start writing scripts, it was the middle of August, and I had just 6 weeks to get everything done. Well, that's not so bad. I did it the previous year. I'm sure I can do it again. But the thing is, I didn't have to make other stuff at the same time last year. This made it a struggle to work on Hawktober, having to constantly drop the project just to quickly get another episode out and then go back. I'm not good at stopping and starting. I need to do my best work while 100% focused, and during this time, it was nearly impossible to focus on anything. But anyway, let's move on to the videos themselves. Even though the entire production was done out of order, it'll just be easier to cover the production of each individual episode in order. So, let's start with Proving Ground. I think this is everyone's favourite episode, and it performed the best. While brainstorming ideas for what I could do to top the first year, I thought it could be fun to incorporate characters from the series. Officer Dick, Private Carrera, and of course, Ollie the Magic Bum. He's such an iconic character in my mind, I thought he'd be perfect to cut away to for some comedic relief. I always thought he kind of looked like my dad, so he was automatically cast to star. My dad isn't an actor, nor is he even remotely interested in YouTube videos or games or any of that, but I still made him do it. I'll have a separate video all about that as there is so much to cover, but I think he did a really good job and it immediately, out of the gate, told the audience that this year we're raising the bar. This was one of the few ideas that actually survived some pretty hefty cuts in pre-production. I thought it might have been fun to build an actual set at the skate park to shoot in, however, that was totally impractical. As a basic compromise, I simply had my Hawktober skateboard in the background, which a lot of people really liked. Last year, I used this crappy hand-me-down board, so I simply went to Kmart and bought a cheap, shitty kids skateboard, printed the logo onto a sticker and put it on. Some people were mad and tried to call me out for not having a genuine skateboard, but you fucking marks, it's a prop for Christ's sake. I never claimed to be an actual skater, and whether I am or not is irrelevant to critiquing skateboard games. So stick that in your half pipe and pop shove it. The Ride and Shred episodes originally were going to be a single video. Finishing the script for Ride and already having a 20-minute video, I thought it'd be best to split them. Not only does that give us 6 reviews in 6 days, which is an extra thing to help with promotion, but it also gives us the extra time to cover everything fully. The Ride episode is my personal favourite of the week. Just everything about it makes me really happy. So many people don't give this game enough time. It's far too easy to play the first 2 levels that are unlocked, skip the tutorials and then complain that it doesn't work, and call it a day. I am so sick of people just not making the effort anymore, and I've made it my personal agenda as a result to do my best to combat this. And hey, look at how much good shit I found hidden in this game nobody ever talks about. I also needed this video to set itself apart from those others, so that helped too. But also, I had far less issues with the game not working because I actually put a little effort into it, so the opinions are mostly different as well. I also consider one of my greatest strengths to be anything involving physical comedy and visual humour. The entire segment where I'm trying to get the board to sync is both over-the-top hilarious, but also reflective of my real-life experience. What tops this episode off though is actually putting wheels on the board and taking it to the skate park to ride it. Nothing even remotely original about this, but to everyone else, that's a video on its own. But for a Square-Eyed Jack episode, it's just a fun little bit. That's the standard I'm trying to set with my content overall. We don't stretch ideas thin around here. Jam-packing episodes makes for much stronger, long-lasting quality if you ask me. And all of the people at the park were really cool about it too. They were stoked once they realised what was going on, and almost everyone had a go. Easily the most fun day of the entire production. The standalone Shred episode was actually cut drastically in half as well. Since the game also includes snowboarding, I wanted to go to the snow and snowboard the thing in real life as a response to doing the same with the ride board. You can see now why doing both of these as a single episode would have been chaos. Unfortunately, even splitting them up didn't help. Due to running out of time from funerals and delayed progress on pre-production, we were too late for the snow season. This was in August, the end of winter here in Australia, and despite being super snowy just 2 weeks prior, there was barely a flake by the time we got up there. It is a real shame, and I'm disappointed we couldn't include it, as I haven't seen anyone do Tony Hawk's Shred in real life. But no use crying about it. I still think that episode has some good moments, but I feel like it's the weakest link of the week. Pro Skater HD is also an episode that had a lot of live action gags cut. One of the big points of the episode is detailing the big drop mechanic. I know people got immediately upset that I didn't know how to land these big drops, but honestly, I had no idea. The game never tells you, and I never owned the manual for Pro Skater 2. I've been playing it for forever now and always just assumed that you couldn't land them, since they only ever come into effect if you jump from buildings or high spots. Regardless, my point is still accurate, that they're much more common in the remake. I wanted to have a bunch of live action cutaways where I jump from a small height just to do some trampoline physics. To do this, I actually bought a trampoline with the goal to make this happen. I'd planned to use my green screen in some capacity alongside to get some floaty bounce physics. This is an idea I still feel could work if I had the time to figure it out. Unfortunately, I took one look at it during the shoot and dropped it immediately. I did not have the time or patience to figure it out here. Luckily, enough funny shit happened in the game that episode is fine without it. In the end, I think it was for the best I didn't try to do this stuff, to be perfectly honest. I had an interesting, overly ambitious green screen idea last year that still made its way into the final product and ultimately ruined the most viewed episode of last year's Hawktober. So to avoid that was good in the end. The one live action gag that remained, however, was a return for Dad the Magic Bum. Again, the original plan was to have him appear through multiple episodes. We would have found him up on top of the mountain in the snow, he'd be at my house, but these were reduced as a result of time. Same old story, I know. It was at this point that a lot of stuff had to be scaled back as a general rule, as I was just running out of time. While it was a lot easier than some might expect for me to go down to the skate park and film last year amongst all the random people there watching me, this year was a totally different story. I just lost my killer's edge and I couldn't do it. There wasn't a confident bone in my body, so even with only 3 videos to shoot at the skate park, it took twice as long as it should have. After we filmed the bum for Pro Skater HD and half of everything else in that episode, right next to a very distinct piece of graffiti, the following morning I arrived to see it covered up with some other garbage. But not only that, the moment I sat down to re-film the episode, the new graffiti guy showed up at the skate park to finish. He was kicking a metal drum around on the floor and I sat there so long waiting for him to leave that I barely got anything done. Because of stuff like this, I'd have a lot of bad days at the skate park and get home before lunch. Last year, I used this time to work on logos and all that stuff. This year, I'd just get home so defeated that I had no energy to even focus on Hawktober. Time was just getting away from me. Having said that, the first day of shooting at the skate park, while also a nightmare due to a lack of confidence, did end on a high note. It's actually the first time I've ever been recognised on the street, which was really cool. Obviously you expect to see a few people at conventions, but just casually checking out EB Games in bumfuck nowhere, that was really awesome. Cheers, mate. For Pro Skater 5, this was again purged of all its live-action comedy. There was going to be more of those trampoline physic gags, lots of glitching through ramps using green screen and layer masks. While talking about modes, I was going to make my head grow bigger and bigger like in the game, but all of that just had to be cut for time and my own sanity. I was already having such a tough time filming my normal stuff at the skate park that all this crazy shit just had to be removed. Excuse me for interrupting the video like this, but I'd like to quickly address the upcoming comments I'm about to make. When the original Pro Skater 5 episode released, it featured an incredibly poor attempt at an edgy joke, which included myself using a derogatory term. This was in 2018, and it's 2019 now, and we've just finished this year's Hawktober special, and I've had an entire year to reflect on my decision to even include this joke in the first place. And I cannot defend this in any way. I'd like to firstly apologise to all of those who were directly affected by what I said, because it's disgusting and incredibly insensitive that the words were ever spoken to begin with, let alone survive into the final video, and I take full responsibility for that. The moment in question has now been removed entirely from the Pro Skater 5 episode in compliance with my own disapproval of the statement and the jokes that I made. However, instead of trying to delete and hide all traces of what I said, I feel like it's very important to keep my original explanation of that statement within this video, both for context, to help explain the train of thought that led to this happening in the first place, but to also try and show that I have absolutely learned from my gross mistake, and owning the fact that I've said what I've said, and nothing can change that. So, in an effort to move forward and prevent anything like this from ever happening again, I thought it necessary to edit this making of video to address the issue, as well as censor the insensitive term within this upcoming explanation. I cut so much from this episode, however, only one joke remained, as I didn't want to cut it. It was just too good to remove. The skating joke. For some context quickly, the game lets you put a man's head on a woman's body, not by design, by lack of design quality. To parody this, I thought putting some balloons up my shirt for comedy breasts would be a good gag. It's kiddie level humour, but what sold it for me was the line,
really brings a new meaning to the term skating.
For real, 100%. I did consider all critical reactions to that before including it. I am someone who firmly believes that everything should be up for comedy given the correct usage, though I still expected the worst. I am surprised at the lack of outrage for this, at least that was visible in the comments and elsewhere. There were some complaints, but after some explanation, I helped several people to understand where I was coming from with the joke. So please, I hate to explain jokes, but hear me out on this. The term skating dates back as long as skateboarding itself. It's slang for skating transition. This wasn't an attack towards any individual or group of people, it was simply a play on words with a lot of different layers. Even if people still disagree and don't think it's okay, that's fine. I don't mean to upset anyone with my videos, and I sincerely apologise if that's the case, but I still feel that given the context and historical aspects of the joke, it's okay. But it is what it is. I just thought I should quickly address that little bit of controversy here. So now, I hope you can understand why I'm coming back here to try and make things right. The fact that this even happened in the first place is bad enough, but I'm incredibly disappointed with myself for not addressing any kind of change much sooner. So again, I'd like to apologise to all of those who were directly affected by this, and for even sinking so low in the first place. I'll be making a much more conscious effort to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. So thank you for listening to my statement, and I hope you can enjoy the rest of this video. Now everyone expected me to break Pro Skater 5. No. My mission with this episode was to get the point across that there are worse Tony Hawk games. It's far too easy for buzzwords and hype to be thrown around. Calling Pro Skater 5 the worst Tony Hawk game is quite a stretch, and quite honestly, it's misinformation. Same for saying Ride is awful and doesn't work. No, it's not great, but its negative press comes from people who lack any integrity or passion for actually giving something a fair chance. Critique and review is just a buzzword game these days, so again, I'm trying to combat that as best I can. I wasn't easy on the game, but I didn't break it for that reason. The final episode was the forgotten Pro Skater games. In other words, it's a leftovers episode. I've done these before. I don't like to do them because it's blatantly obvious I'm trying to go back and fix things I could have covered originally. However, in saying that, compilation episodes are some of my favourites to do. Not to mention, this was also set up for a Tony Hawk episode I have planned for next year that requires that I've covered all of these games. The hardest thing to get organised here was a modded original Xbox to play 2X. Living in a PAL region and not having access to it, this was the most interesting game to me going into the episode. I'd planned for it to be the final game I talked in depth about, then the quick piece on Thug Pro. The absolute first thing I did for this project back in June was try to source a modded Xbox, and not until late September did I finally land one. Turns out, the game is pretty average. So the script was totally restructured in order of release. One of the earliest ideas I'd had for the second year of Hawktober, covering the demise of the series, dates back prior to the first year being uploaded. I always talked about the poor games being nails in the coffin of this series. I did consider, given October normally being the month for spooky Halloween content, actually having a coffin and a graveyard set, driving a massive nail through each bad game, and ending it off with some sort of burial, which could then be resurrected to start year 3. It seemed far too contrived and against the formula, so that idea was dropped in the end. Quickly, I'd just like to talk about the trailer as well. The first Tony Hawk game I ever played was Underground, and I only found out about that game through a trailer on a demo disc that came with my PS2. Given the theme of changing the overall style, I thought that fit perfectly with this year's theme of a new developer taking the series in a new direction. It's so nostalgic for me as well, so I had a lot of fun recreating it. Overall, I am incredibly happy with the final product. I think it's a solid body of work that not only met expectations, but also surpassed them in terms of quality compared to year 1. I wasn't sure I'd be able to, but I think everyone agrees that's the case. And while I still have a lot of love for last year, this year just kills. In fact, I'm so proud to say Hawktober killed everything! For the past couple of years, this channel has done nothing but spin its wheels on the ice and struggle to make progress for the longest time. It's been stagnant at best. I am just so grateful that people enjoyed Hawktober 2018 and helped to make it the literal biggest success in this channel's history. Even bigger than Crash Bandicoot, the thing that originally got people watching. You have no idea how important that is to me, to not only surpass those prior number milestones, but to just absolutely fucking destroy them on all fronts. We hit 19,000 subscribers the day Proving Ground was uploaded, and then we hit 20,000 on the Friday, a week after Hawktober ended. That is just insane. The growth, the viewership, the watch time all across the board, so many people shared these videos and helped to create a buzz about it, to the point where each day I'd watch and see hundreds of extra eyes watching each video as it was uploaded. And not to mention all of the people who signed up for Patreon to get early access. That blew my fucking mind. Events like this are only made possible from that extra level of support. It is such a true honour that so many people enjoy this channel special and want to see it be successful, along with the channel as a whole. But even still, I've heard a lot of criticism for my actions, wasting 3, almost 4 months of hard work in the space of a single week, when really, I could upload the videos through the entire month, like everyone else. But those criticisms are from people that just don't get it, and who don't understand what makes it special in the first place. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for sticking with me through the rough period to get this done. I know the channel suffered in the time leading up to it, upload-wise, but as you understand now, that sacrifice was well worth it in the end. If you have any further questions, be sure to leave a comment down below, followed with liking, subscribing, and sharing the video. I'm Square-Eyed Jack, and I hope you have a great fucking day. Thanks for watching. See you next year for Hawktober 2019.